So we're continuing chapter 3. Um, Charles William's cousin, aunt, and uncle are visiting for the first time, and the cousin's name is Mike, and he is bothering Socks. He was making a short, panting sound like a dog, which was freaking Socks out. Was there a dog in the house? Where? The enemy cat then returned with a threatening wail. Meow! Then the dog panted. Socks was terrified. He was surrounded by invisible enemies. Wild-eyed, he darted from under the chair to the center of the rug. Panting harder, the invisible dog seemed to be coming closer. Panting harder, "Oh, say, hasn't that cat put on a lot of weight?" asked Uncle Walter, who had been forced to admit that Charles William would not be ready to read for a few years, and by then the encyclopedia might be out of date. I forgot to tell you in the last part, an encyclopedia is a set of books that tell information, facts, about all sorts of topics. People don't really use them anymore because we have the internet. So if you have a question about something, in the old days when I was growing up, if I wanted to find out about volcanoes, I would look in the V encyclopedia and I would read about volcanoes. Nowadays, I would say, "Hey Siri, tell me about volcanoes," or I would go on the internet. Okay, let's see. "You know," said Aunt Cassie, who was letting Charles William clutch her finger, "overweight animals are subject to heart trouble, the same as overweight people." Her voice then shifted to a higher note. "Does the baby see the kitty? Look at the fat kitty." "You're right. He is gaining weight." Mrs. Bricker sounded surprised, as if she had not taken time to look at her cat closely lately. Charles William, turning his head in the direction of the cat fight sound, looked worried. Socks decided to risk the run to the safety of the bedroom, but Uncle Walter reached out and caught him as he tried to go by. Socks struggled. Uncle Walter would not let him go. "Mike, I told you to stop that," said Aunt Cassie, and continued with her discussion of Socks's weight problem. "That cat should be put on a diet before it's too late. Our poor old lassie is much healthier now that we have her on a salt-free, low cholesterol diet." "The dog gets chicken breasts, we get hamburgers," said Uncle Walter, amusing himself by rumpling the cat's fur. "I buy chicken breasts on sale and freeze them." Aunt Cassie had an answer for everything. Socks managed to endure the rumpling of his fur the best he could, but the minute the big hands released him, he crouched close to the floor and glared in pure hatred at Uncle Walter. Remember, he said he rumples his fur and it takes licks and licks and licks to get it straight again? Then, looking anxiously from right to left and back again, he fled from the living room to his hideaway under the bed. There he stayed, among the dusty fluffs, sneezing occasionally and trying to put his fur in order in a space so low that he could not sit up. Everything was wrong. He hated Uncle Walter and did not trust Mike. Aunt Cassie did not like him. Worn out by the afternoon and with his fur a mess, Socks fell asleep. Things were sure to be better at supper time. Even though Socks slept, his sharp ears told him what was going on. The visitors left. Charles William took his bottle. When the ears told him the second burp was done, he came out from under the bed and, trailing dust from his whiskers, ran down the hall to the kitchen in time to meet Mr. Bricker with the formula bottle. "Sorry, Socks," said Mr. Bricker, unscrewing the cap. "Cassie is right. You're too heavy." Socks looked up and meowed to tell his master how hungry he was and how much he needed the comfort after that terrible afternoon. Meow, meow. "Beat it." Mr. Bricker's words were rude, but his voice was kind. "We can't have any fat cats around this house. We keep healthy around here." Mrs. Bricker entered the kitchen to prepare supper. I'm going to watch my diet too, she said, as her husband dumped Socks's share of the warm milk down the drain. And I'm going to start exercising. I still can't zip all my slacks. She raised her arm and bent to touch her toes. Sock was outraged. What was the matter with these people? He was supposed to have formula now. He always had formula after Charles William. These people could not treat him this way. He placed his front paws on Mr. Bricker's leg and meowed to let his feelings be known. Sorry. Mr. Bricker had made up his mind to start Socks on a program of physical fitness. 1, 2, 1, 2. Mrs. Bricker continued to touch her toes. Socks unsheathed his claws the least little bit and let them poke Mr. Bricker's leg. Ouch! Cut that out. Mr. Bricker unhooked the claws and walked out of the kitchen, leaving Socks to sulk beside the refrigerator, while Mrs. Bricker, out of breath from her exercise, prepared the evening meal. All right, Socks, she finally said, after she had tripped over him twice and stepped on his tail. I'll feed you now and get you out of the way. She laid 4 pieces of meat instead of 8 on the dish in the laundry room. So he's used to 8 and she only gave him 4. Socks gulped them down and looked up to say, as if to say, where's the rest of my meal? 4 pieces of meat would not get him out of the way when he was used to 8. Silly cat, said Mrs. Bricker with affection, you and I are going on a diet. Socks sat down beside the refrigerator and gave his whiskers a quick swipe with his paw while he thought the problem over. Kind of hard for pets to understand when they are going on a diet, isn't it? When Charles William fussed in the back bedroom and Mrs. Bricker hurried off to take care of him, Socks saw his chance. He sprang up onto the counter where he was disappointed to discover that the Brickers were having hot dogs for supper. But too hungry to be choosy, he sank his teeth into a hot dog and thumped to the floor. Can you see his belly? He is getting big. Socks! Shouted Mrs. Bricker, who heard the thump and knew what was happening. Socks ran in a guilty crouch through the laundry room and down the hall to his hideaway under the bed. Mr. Bricker was after him with the broom. We can't let you get away with that, he said, on his hands and knees, as he lifted the bedspread and poked at his cat. Come on out of there. Socks carried his hot dog to the farthest corner against the wall and growled at Mr. Bricker. This was no hot dog. This was his hot dog, and he was willing to fight for it. Mr. Bricker pushed the broom at him, but Socks did not budge. He growled more fiercely, and his fur rose along his spine. Let his owner yell and poke. He was hungry, and he was going to have that hot dog. The broom jabbed again, and Socks dropped his hot dog in the dust, and, with every hair standing on end, he hissed. Mr. Bricker laughed. Okay, you win this time, but next time, look out. He got to his knees and left Socks to his prey. Socks settled down to gnaw the hot dog as fiercely as if he had stalked it and killed it in the backyard. If his owners did not care enough about him to feed him properly, he would have to live by his wits. Poor Socks. Poor starving Socks. Poor thing. I wonder if it's going to work. If he'll get used to it, or will he try to keep stealing food? Well, we'll have to find out in the next chapters.